Action. Welcome to Paul's Old Ass Movie Classics. Today, of course, I'm joined here with Drew Stewart. Thank you, Drew.
Sir?
And today, in memoriam, right? In memoriam, and to honor his long career with the recent passing of Donald Sutherland, we wanted to give him a shout out and do one of his classic films. And we decided on a movie called Klute from 1971. This movie did very well, and I'll get into some of that right now. But you can watch it right now. Usually, we typically do films that are for free or on a streaming service. But because of the circumstances, we wanted to just do what we thought was the best one, and so we splurged. We splurged on this one. We went over budget, but you can rent it now on Apple or Amazon. Rent or buy, whatever you choose. And this is directed by Alan J. Pakula, who also directed All the President's Men, Sophie's Choice, Pelican Brief was one of his more recent ones. And this is written by the brothers Andy and David Lewis. They never really did a lot of films, but they wrote a lot in TV, 12 O'Clock High and The Virginian. And this, of course, stars Jane Fonda, who won the Best Actress Award that year. And, of course, our man Donald Sutherland, Charles Cioffi, and from Jaws and Blue Thunder, Roy Scheider, a fan favorite. Premise of this movie: small town detective searching for a missing man has only one lead: a connection with a New York prostitute. This had an IMDB rating of 7.1 and did very well in the box office, had $2.5 million budget and pulled over $12 million. And this also received one other Oscar nomination, didn't win, but got nominated for Best Original Screenplay. So good job to the brothers Andy and David Lewis. So, Drew, let's get into it. What's your favorite thing about this film?
So I was surprised that this movie had escaped my attention until very recently. And like just a little bit before his passing, I kind of saw it. I think it had been on, I don't know, Prime or Netflix or something. And I didn't watch it, but I was interested. And then he passed, and I was like, I was really interested in seeing that. Uh, there was a lot to like about this film. You know, I say it often. I love the 70s paranoia, thriller, detective, paranoia type stuff. But in this particular film, I just thought that the writing for the two main characters, Klute and Bree, played by Jane Fonda, and the performances of the two was as good as it gets in film. I have not typically been a giant Jane Fonda fan. In part, I think mostly I've just seen some of her later work, and I don't know. There's just something about her that I've not always been a fan of. She gave one of the best performances in this film I've ever seen. And Donald Sutherland was incredible. He was so understated and so quiet and so contemplative, and just their ability to stay in character and then slowly break out of character as I think they could have only done to each other. I thought it was a masterpiece in character study and writing and acting between those two, and I really, really thought it was great.
Yeah, I don't have as high praise as you do.
Okay.
I did like All the President's Men. I just thought the pacing of this film just didn't do it for me. I agree with the performance. I do think Jane Fonda really did stand out, and I think Donald Sutherland is great, of course. And I liked the storyline. I just felt, like I said, that the pacing, and I just felt, sometimes the 70s filmmaking just kind of got in the way. Now I'm a noted not a big fan of 70s filmmaking. I prefer 50s, 60s, and 80s over the 70s. It's maybe my least favorite time period when it comes to filmmaking, only because it's it to me is unnecessarily stylized at a time where, and I think it's a positive thing because a lot of the 80s and 90s directors studied the 70s guys. So I'm not saying this is a negative thing. I think this is part of the art aspect of it, but there's just, again, and I think audiences were different in the 70s too. And so You hear Tarantino loves this time period. But for me, it's just not my favorite. It's just slower paced, and it drags things out for me. This film just kind of dragged things out for me, and I just lost interest. And I've seen a lot of good thrillers where it's like you're kind of on the case, and this one I just never just never got into the case, I guess. Really, I didn't really care, to be honest. And I think maybe just the reveals weren't quick enough, or again, this just could be me. Obviously, the ratings were high and it did well and people liked it. So I'm not even going to say there's things that should be changed because I'm probably the outlier here, but I think I think that's what for me just kind of made it difficult.
That's fair enough. And you'll notice that what I said, I didn't necessarily say that I loved the plot. What I really liked was their two performances and the way they were written and just kind of the way their characters developed, especially, I mean, Jane Fonda, it was obviously very, a very feminist film.
Yeah.
And sort of her empowerment in her sex work that she was doing
Yeah.
and just kind of watching that change and evolve. So I don't disagree. I felt like it was at times confusing. I felt at times it was slow in terms of moving the plot forward. But like I said, I liked how these two characters were written, how the two of them played them. I thought like to near perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I don't know if you want to add anything else. Does this movie hold up for you?
For me, it does. Yeah. I think that it was sophisticated in its like the technical way in which it was shot and filmed. I thought the writing was good. I thought the acting was good, and it's a story that you could see happening today. So for me, it doesn't feel super dated, even though it's very 70s in feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go with no on this one, only because, and again, sometimes the problem when you see a 70s film and then you've seen movies that borrow from something, they sometimes just do it better. And I feel like I've seen this movie just executed better. And like I said, whether it's and again, I want to continue to preface this. Everybody has different opinions on movies. So just because I'm disagreeing with it, does not mean I think that there's not greatness to this movie or that other people, I do think I'm probably on the outside looking in.
It would be disingenuous. Like I can't remember. There was a film a couple ago that I didn't love as much as you did. It would be disingenuous if we both just gushed about each film each time. Like
Yeah,
we're gonna run across some of these that we haven't seen before that people like and we may not like as much. I
yeah,
happen to like this one more than you did, but I get what you're saying.
yeah, for sure. Um, Contemporary comparison.
That was hard for me. I was really struggling to try to find one. Though I agree, I feel like things like this have been kind of done a decent amount. Did you have one?
No, there's one in my head, but I couldn't think of the name of it. Like I said, I feel like I've seen this movie before,
Yeah.
um, but I can't figure out what that movie is. Um,
I know I had one and then I didn't write it down in time and now I can't remember what it was. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it'll come to me as we talk about. I did think about people that I could cast um, in their roles.
yeah, go for it.
I thought Jessica Chastain could do very good in Jane Fonda's role, and I thought that Benedict Cumberbatch could do good in his role. Just kind of that quiet, understated that he does really well. Donald Sutherland was very quiet, very calm throughout this whole film.
Yeah.
Uh, Chastain just kind of has that edge to her that I felt like Fonda brought in this, where she kind of can have people wrapped around her finger, and then going for the kill.
Yeah, I could also see like Michael Shannon do a
Really,
role,
that's a good call.
and I'm trying to think who else for the female role. Jessica Chastain, I think, is a little too old now for the role because I just feel like prostitutes aren't typically in their 40s, and I believe she's late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
Um, so I'd want to find like a 25-year-old, but I'm trying to think. Like I said, it completely escapes me. I've had a long day, but um, yeah. I mean, the one that kind of fits like the body mold would be like a Lily Depp. She just did that one series with. I feel like she can kind of possibly do that role. I don't know that should be my number one choice, but I think she could possibly do it. Even if you wanted to like star it up, I think a Jennifer Lawrence could maybe even pull that role.
I think Jennifer Lawrence would do a good job. Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, even I mean, uh, it's not a one for one comparison, but maybe an American Hustle kind of has similar vibes to it. I just think it's American Hustle is a little more uh, stylized. So, I think so. Even like what's his face, Christian Bale, I could even see doing that role. I like Michael Chan a little bit more because of just the way Donald Sutherland plays it. Like it's just a little bit more awkward. Um, but yeah.
Don't get sexist on me. If Jessica Chastain's too old, Christian Bale's definitely too old.
Well, no, Donald Sutherland's like 40 in this, isn't he?
No, he looks so young.
Hmm.
Let me look. I'm looking it up.
Yeah. Um, no, because there's an age difference. I mean, I feel like
No,
Jane,
I'm not saying he's as young as her, but um, he was born in 1935,
she's 40.
and this
Just in her 40, late 30s.
late 30s.
Hmm.
Christian Bale's probably in his 50s. Jane Fonda was born 2 years older than him, sir, or 2 years after him, sir.
Oh, well, she's older in this one?
No, she's 2 years younger than Donald Sutherland, so she's
Oh.
probably mid 30s.
Oh, all right. I mean, she's definitely okay. Yeah, she's definitely a wiser prostitute as opposed to like I'm new on the block, like
No, yeah,
Jodie Foster, Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver. But
she's very empowered, been around the block, knows what she's doing. Yeah,
yeah, I guess maybe Jessica Chastain.
I'm not trying to convince you. It's all good. I'm just giving you a hard time about their.
By the way, I love Jessica Chastain, so it's
Yeah.
not. It would definitely be a different role for her. I just almost, I just don't know if.
I just think of her in Molly's Game and kind of how much she was a boss in that and just kind of had people wrapped around her finger. And so I just kind of thought of her in that role. But
Yeah, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. All right. Any other comments on this film?
yeah, I'm sorry that I picked it and you didn't like it that much, but we're gonna miss
No, I'm
occasionally.
glad I'm glad I watched it. Like I said, I
Um,
mean, just for Jane Fonda's acting, I think it was, and even Donald Sutherland. I mean, like I had mentioned, I haven't really seen a lot of his '70s stuff, and that's, where he made a big part of his career. I mean, I have seen Don't Look at Me, or Don't Look Now. I have seen that one, and that's like a bigger film of his. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't regret watching this, and just didn't catch right away. But again, I do think there's some positive things from this movie. And again, I think if you love '70s films, this, I think you'll like this film. There's a
yeah,
reason why it got the accolade. So,
for sure.
all right, anything else?
No, I think that's good.
All right. Then let's do our last little segment here. Best Donald Sutherland films. I'm curious definitely to hear yours. I did a mixture myself of some new and old. Um, and so yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you start with five?
I skewed pretty old. So for me, I started with, I mean, this is old by now standards, but not old compared to some of his other films. I did JFK for number five.
Nice.
Thought he was really good in JFK. JFK's both great and ridiculous. But he's, Oliver Stone is good filmmaker, and I thought he did a great job in there. And
Yeah,
then,
he's a pivotal role in that one because again, just he's very believable as this government informant. Like that again, whether it's his presence, his voice, he just has this believability that he knows a lot, and it's chilling the way he presents it. You're just like,
yeah,
oh man, you know a lot. So I really enjoyed him in that role.
yeah, he's the man behind the curtain
Yeah.
type. Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Um, num
No,
Or
no.
before
Yeah,
you,
we snake it, remember?
yeah.
My number five is a movie he did with his son, and it's a Western called Forsaken. And I really like the dynamic between him and his son in that film. His son, Kiefer Sutherland's a kind of a former outlaw that's just kind of trying to move on, and the dad's like a super pious minister, but he really basically, you know, forsakes his son because of his past sins. So it's a really good balance of classic action western, but also this unforgiving kind of Christianity, and having to rebuild that kind of relationship between the two. It's a really good, really solid western. I mean, again, I don't think it's Tombstone level western, but I think it's a very solid modern western. So that's my five. And my four, you already mentioned it, so I don't necessarily need to slash it, but I basically did his two bit roles that were like my two first real introductions to him, which was JFK and Backdraft. But he kind of plays a similar character in both of those, which is like, behind the conspiracy type of guy. And again, they weren't huge roles for him, but again, I thought it was a great introduction, and he just had so much weight behind those roles and really added a lot to both those films.
I didn't know we got to cheat and just like do slashes, but that's cool.
Well, I mean, you picked JFK, so
I'm totally kidding. And I almost picked Backdraft, so it's
yeah.
all I'm glad you put it on there. My number four is this film. I like I said, I thought he was masterful in bringing this character to life in a very quiet way. Number three for me is MASH. We just brought this up recently. Because we did the war films. Um, MASH, great film. He's great. It spawned. His performance was really good. Alan Alda credits him for having a career. And I feel like in many ways, Alan Alda went on in the TV show to really turn that character into something special.
Yeah.
But it's great for him to give the nod to Donald Sutherland that if it wasn't for him, he couldn't have done it. Altman. So I love MASH. I thought Donald Sutherland was great in that.
Yeah, for sure. My number three, and this is probably his biggest modern role, but for the Hunger Games, and obviously he's multiple clothes, but he's President Snow. I think, for a lot of modern fans or audiences, this is what he knows him for. I'm not saying this is my favorite role for him, but he's excellent in it nonetheless because, again, he just has that command on screen. I'm surprised he didn't do more like presidential roles or anything like that, because I think, him and like a Morgan Freeman, they always have this just very, commanding presence on screen to where it's like very believable, whether it's a military chief or a presidential role or political role. I always thought that's his wheelhouse. And but yeah, I thought he was great in Hunger Games. And then my number two, I mentioned it earlier, but it's Don't Look Now, one of his classic films and one of his most famous roles. Um, I don't I think if you like Klute, I think you'll like Don't Look Now. Very similar in terms of like pacing and all that stuff. Definitely a 70s film, but it's one of his more popular ones as well.
Yeah. I almost put the Hunger Games on there too, because I agree with you. I feel like that introduced him to a more modern audience, to a younger audience. And it's surprising to me. I agree. It just seems like he stopped working as much later on. Like some actors just keep grinding. It seemed like he was more selective, which good for him, but kind of a bummer because I feel like he's always good in everything he does. Would have loved to see him in some more, but he was great in that. Number two for me is Don't Look Now. Like you said, I mean, it's heartbreaking, and scary but just a great performance, that he has, Julie Christie as well. And then number one for me is, Ordinary People, directed by
Okay.
Robert Redford. Like a super young Judd Nelson. Um, an older Mary Tyler Moore, but like everybody in that was nominated for Academy Awards except for him. But he is really great in that, as the patriarch.
I don't
And
think I've seen that movie.
yeah, it's sad. But really, really well done. And like I said, basically everybody got nominated except for him. And in many ways, I feel like he did the best and wasn't even nominated. So a tour de force of acting. So good film.
Nice. My number one was your number three, but MASH, again, such a different role for him. But he showed he really has kind of the comedic chops and was excellent in that role.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was
He and Elliot Gould had an awesome chemistry.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, good job on that. Next week's film. So I got inspired by a book, audience, if you want to read it. But Quentin Tarantino has a book called something cinema speculation, and he kind of reviews a bunch of films and kind of gives his one. He talks about his experiences with the film, but then also kind of talks about kind of the importance of the film and again kind of what he got out of that. And so it inspired me just to, again, these are great films. I haven't heard of them, so I kind of want to follow up with them. So the first one on the list that Quentin Tarantino really, really, really loved and was inspired by was Bullet from 1978. Steve McQueen, Robert Vaughn, Jacqueline Bisset. And unfortunately, this is also we're gonna break our rule again, but we really wanted to watch this film. So you can get this on Apple and Amazon, what you can rent or buy it. But yeah, we're gonna go with that film for next week. And yeah, make sure you catch our other episodes. We just did the Defiant ones with Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis, and we also did M as well. Make sure you check those out. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And thanks, Drew, for joining us.
Always.
And with that, that's a cut. Thanks, guys.